everybody, and welcome to Wrestling And. Today, we are talking about wrestling and age. Right, Justin?
We are talking about wrestling and age.
As in how old are you? Yes. Part of...
Answer that.
You don't have to answer it. You just keep...
We're going to do the math.
Yeah. We already know how old you are. That we get those demographics on the podcast app. So part of what makes wrestling so entertaining is that it's a sport that, if done safely, right, many people can do it into their 40s, 50s, and even though it's dangerous, as long as you're entertaining, you can keep going and going, as people like, say, Ric Flair, Tatsuji Fujinami have shown us. On the young side, usually as wrestling is done kind of in the late teens and early 20s, but people definitely come from that like younger demographic and just totally rip it up. And another interesting thing I think about wrestling and age is that wrestling seems to take a long time to generally get good at. It takes people a while to get good at. So with that being said, let's hand it over to Mr. @InRingArt on Instagram and Twitter. Justin, how's it going in SoCal, Justin?
Not too bad today, actually. Spent a little time in Little Tokyo on this Saturday as we record the show. It's funny you mentioned wrestling and age, because wrestling, I guess we're calling it a sport here. Athletic.
Sport, show.
Athletic performance, right?
Athletic performance, for sure.
It's rare that in a sport that you can kind of hit your peak in your early to mid 30s. And that's what happens in professional wrestling. And not only with performance, but also appearance, I think. You see wrestlers take on basically their peak form of their physical appearance also in their 30s in performance. And that's what just makes it a very interesting sport, is when you're 22, 23 years old, you might be, maybe peak level of conditioning and shape or whatever, but then when you hit your mid-30s, that's when you put it all together. It's just a real interesting thing, and you're right, as long as you take care of yourself, or maybe you're just super, super lucky, you can be working well into your, late 40s, early 50s, as we see with a lot of wrestlers today, like Chris Jericho.
I like how we still put a limit on it, though. We're like, into your 50s.
Well, I'm just saying, but there's some guys that are coming out there.
PCO.
That's another guy that's probably in his late 50s, right? Out there and, not doing too bad, to be honest. It's just a rare form of just, when you think of athletic performance, to hit your peak as a wrestler in that early 30s to your mid 30s, that's rare of any kind of, profession that requires athletic ability.
Yeah, the only thing I can compare it to, well, I'm sure there's lots of stuff, but a lot of elite athletes in sports usually can go a while. Specifically, I'm thinking like elite quarterbacks usually do peak in their 30s, right? But that's like a very specific...
I wouldn't say they necessarily peak in their 30s.
They just keep going?
They're just able to keep going because, how do you put this? Quarterback, you need to have a strong arm, a good mind, and usually those are the things that if you start to lose your legs a little bit, you can still throw the ball and your mind's working, you can survive a lot longer. If you're a running back where you have to run and take the biggest hit,
bumps, basically,
right, you lose your speed, you're done.
Where quarterbacks like legitimately try not to take bumps in the field.
Well, so does everyone else, but a quarterback has a little more of a running back's got to go head to head and boom, 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 take a lot of abuse. And don't say quarterbacks don't, but if you lose your speed as a running back, you're done. Or if if you're a quarterback, you lose your speed. As long as you can throw the ball and your mind is sharp with your decisions and stuff, you can play a lot longer. So same with like a pitcher, right? Mm-hmm. A pitcher doesn't have to run bases. They just have to sit there and their arms got to work. So
yeah, they barely have to bat well at all.
Yeah, that's why, you know, on rare occasions, you'll have pitchers pitch into their 40s and still be effective. But there's always kind of a tipping off point, you know, that comes. But, you know, I think it's just, you can compare it to that. But imagine if, you know, a pitcher fell on their back, you know, 270 days a year. That's what makes it incredible. Obviously, professional wrestlers probably maintain muscles like anyone else, and maybe that's what helps is you know, they're just stronger and they are used to pain. I think a tolerance from pain is what helps them keep going too. Well, they just get used to it.
No, there's definitely that. You know what is very interesting though is that in actual combat sports, there are a lot of guys that can do very well in their mid-30s and early 40s. It's not everyone, obviously, and I don't know when people peak in combat sports in general, but you have guys like Evander Holyfield, right? Or some of the heavyweights in UFC that have, you know, become dominant even in their older age. And look at Daniel Cormier, right? Guy who's awesome, like into a little bit older. So interesting comparison there. But again, you know, wrestling, it's a very unique thing.
And look at Stu Hart still torturing those people in the dungeon at his age too.
Jeez, yeah, seriously, I bet you it hurts too. So, but you know, before we get too deep into the subject at hand, I first wanted to mention Mr. Scott Hall, Razor Ramon, who passed away recently. Why don't you talk about what we already know, what happened?
Well, I mean, for people that, we all know he passed away earlier this week. He fell and broke his hip, recently, and he had to go in and get surgery, and there was some complications, which led to some blood clots, which led to some heart attacks, and he was put on life support, and unfortunately, he wasn't able to kick out, and it really sucks, because I don't know about you, but growing up, he was one of my favorites,
He was one of my favorites, definitely.
Yeah.
And he was, as someone who, doesn't necessarily have a great memory of liking wrestling as a kid, I definitely remember him, dude.
Yeah, I mean, Razor Ramon, right? And even, when I became a little smarter, realizing that he was Big Scott Hall back in AWA, had the big mustache, and was a tag team with Kurt Hennig. And, of course, honestly, he's been involved in arguably one of probably the top 5 moments in wrestling history. With Hogan being the third man, and him and Nash leaving WWF for WCW in, 96?
Yeah.
Was changed the business forever.
Well, if you're talking about money making and popularity grabbing, you might say it's number one. You might say it's number one because, and I'm talking as far as merch and all that stuff too, because that was one of the events, if not the event, that sparked off the most popular era in wrestling that there may ever be. So,
yeah, I mean, when I think of moments in pro wrestling history, you the top of my head is, Hogan slamming Andre at WrestleMania 3, right?
Mm-hmm.
Shawn Michaels with the super kick through the barbershop window.
Maybe Austin winning King of the Ring.
The 316 moment. Yeah, could be up there. And then, of course, the curtain call.
Yeah.
And that's Scott Hall's involvement. Them showing up Scott Hall showing up in the Canadian tuxedo minus the sleeves for the first time in WCW, and then of course that Bash of the Beach, and then maybe Hogan and The Rock in WrestleMania 18 or something like that.
Yeah,
but
I'm just going to add
those are all huge moments
for the Puto fans there that he mentioned All American stuff, so I'm going to say Misawa beating Jumbo Tsuruta in Budokan also being a massive moment, but
Sure.
that drove huge
Okay.
business. But yes,
Just talking about us as kids.
yeah, for sure.
growing
Well,
up out
I
here,
was
yeah.
watching Misawa when I was 9, so no, I really wasn't. But no, I agree with you. So one of these guys that has a huge catalyst in popularity of wrestling. But besides all that, I'm going to tell you, I shouldn't be surprised because, he's Razor Ramon, he's Scott Hall, but I'm almost surprised at how huge the reception has been and how much people really love the guy. And again, I shouldn't be surprised, but as far as wrestling people passing away, this was a huge one. And you see it on Twitter for a week or more, so much love directed at Scott Hall. So many.
So are you
gifts.
saying, is your surprise come from him passing away or from the reception?
From the response. From the
Really?
response. Because, I mean, I knew he was popular and stuff, but I kind of always thought in my head, like, yeah, he was an awesome wrestler, did the NWO thing, but he was always overshadowed by other people. But, I was actually really thought it was awesome what... it's terrible that he died, first of all. There's no... But the way the community has really celebrated his life is very beautiful.
Oh, it's been great. And I for one, am not surprised because I always knew he was... I mean, he was one of the most... And then I think also later on, he was acknowledged as being one of the great minds.
Yeah, they called him really sharp. He was considered him real sharp as far as stuff in the ring goes and planning out matches.
Yeah, and I always thought he was really good in the ring too.
Definitely, yeah, he was really good in the ring, and I mean, I'm going to tell you this: I think from being a kid, his finisher was one of the most brutal and dangerous.
Oh yeah, and it does take a little bit of skill for someone to take it. You can't just give it to anyone, and I think he also knew how to take care of people with it. But at the same time, we also have heard whenever there's the conversation of who is the greatest pro wrestler to not hold a heavyweight world championship, he's always at the top of the list.
Yeah, and that totally makes sense.
And he was one guy that just had so much machismo, right, as he called it, charisma, that he didn't need it, Yeah.
And he learned, I heard Alvarez saying this, it's like a lot of people say, oh, you're born with charisma. And Scott Hall seemed like someone who actually did learn the charisma side of things, or at least he was given a character where he could show his charisma, because Meltzer was saying that in the 80s he was good, but, he wasn't someone you looked at as be making money. But once he turned into Razor Ramon, I guess Naito was similar, right? Where Naito kind of was like, that's okay, but it's kind of boring. And then he changed, and all of a sudden, he's like the coolest fucking guy on the planet.
Yeah, and it's funny, though, because Naito is one of those guys you hear he's very reserved and shy, in kayfabe, I mean, in real life, but you have a character that's just, obviously, I don't really think he's known for... being... I mean, he is charismatic, but he's not exactly a loudmouth or anything. He's, kind of reserved and, tranquilo, like he says.
And that's
still
his
exudes the
type
charisma.
of charisma. Yeah, it's that in-ring and his cockiness in-ring,
Right.
and the whole, stay chill, everything's cool. He's the coolest guy in the room, you know what I mean?
Right,
and that's
right.
really what kind of what Razor Ramon... And I had a friend tell me yesterday, I don't like when people compare Japanese wrestlers to American wrestlers. They just are who they are. And so, yes, Scott Hall and Naito, very different wrestlers, but they're both great in their own way. And I'm just looking to
Right.
maybe
they
younger
both,
fans that didn't watch Scott Hall. That helps them
they
understand.
both had a swagger to them.
Oh, yeah.
A similar swagger. Like when Naito walks in for an entrance, the presence and the cockiness, they don't need to say anything, Naito just walks in and has that kind of gleam and that grimace and that smirk. And then Razor Ramon came in with his little sidewalk and messing with the hair and then flicking the toothpick. No words were said,
Yeah.
And you just automatically knew right away that, these guys are cool.
Now, I want to add real quick, Jim Johnston gets a huge shout out, and I haven't heard enough people talk about this. Fucking awesome music for Razor Ramon. You had the stinger
Oh,
with
yeah.
the car swerving, and then just that like hard driving, pounding beat. It was, and then when the synths hit, oh my God, that song is awesome, dude. One of my favorite themes. I used to actually listen to it on the Game Boy. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
So another real cool part of him.
He got a great theme song, and he had the purple and the gold, and the Razors just had great gear too.
I loved how he mixed it up too. He did the green, he had the purple, he did the black and gold, and another cool part of him, you know, is he was so fucking cool, man. But you know, it was a life marked short, most likely by drug abuse and trauma. Obviously, with the trauma that he experienced in the 80s, that very well could have led to his abuse.
Yeah, I think he basically witnessed a murder, right? Or he had to murder somebody, and it was self-defense. He killed somebody in self-defense. Well,
remember,
like that,
murder
right?
is a legal term. So
right, I'm sorry.
He did kill somebody in... Yeah,
self-defense.
And it was actually not ruled self-defense. Well, no, it was thrown out. I believe it was thrown out. So, like, they just couldn't find evidence to say anything, which is kind of weird. I think that's the case. But, yeah,
right.
So he
whatever it was, he had a traumatic thing happen to him as an adult that might have played to that. But I think also Bret Hart explained in his, you know, he put out a statement kind of thing, and he basically said, like, hey, you know, these are, I'm paraphrasing, but it was just basically, you know, when we worked 300 days a year, that's just wasn't right for us. These are the effects of wrestlers working these schedules and what's happening to you know, what they become dependent on, you know, things to make them feel better instead of healing.
I totally agree with you, and actually, I do really recommend people go listen to. We did an episode called Wrestling and Addiction, and we talked about Scott Hall. We talked about it right soon before he passed away. Yeah, and we talked about him in detail, and we talked about how that lifestyle led to the choices that were made. If you guys are interested in that, definitely give that a listen, because you know, we care about these things, and that's kind of why we're doing this show and bringing up some of the issues that, you know, we're just fans that are interested in this whole world, and sadly that is a part of wrestling.
And you know, just to kind of tie this back to what, you know, one of our preferred you know, companies to watch is New Japan. Hiroshi Tanahashi did some very beautiful tributes to Scott Hall.
And why don't you talk about the history of that real quick? Yeah,
so in 2001, you had I don't think he was he even a young boy, or he was post young boy 2001.
Yeah, because I don't know how it really worked back then. He might have been.
I heard he was in the business for like a year or two at the time. Tanahashi, because Tanahashi's probably 4 or 5 years older than me, so he was probably in his early 20s, mid 20s. Scott Hall was, you know, he had a pretty decent history with New Japan, and he was there in 2001, a very young Tanahashi. I guess, you know, Scott Hall took a liking to him, and, you know, basically kind of had the idea he was there for a match with Muda or something, building up to it, and you know, he basically recreated how he lost to the 1-2-3 Kid, aka Sean Waltman, aka X-Pac, but he did it with a young Hiroshi Tanahashi. And
he put him over big, huh?
Yeah, well, I mean, you watch the match, it's on YouTube, and it's been everywhere. Just take a look if no one's taken it down yet, but I don't know, like 5.5, 6 minute match where he's just basically, you know, it's a squash match for lack of a better term, and he gives you know, Hiroshi Tanahashi the I guess it was called the Outsider's Edge or whatever they were going to call it at the time, the Razor's Edge, and he, instead of going for the pin, he picks up the microphone and, you know, tells hey, you know, Keiji Muda, if you're going to get in the ring with me, this is what's going to happen to you. And as he's saying that, Tanahashi rolls him up in the schoolboy 1, 2, 3.
Wow.
And
that is so fun, man. That is just so fun.
And the story is that anyone that he was talking to, Scott Hall at that time, was telling everyone that this kid's money. And not only did Tanahashi come out earlier this week in the New Japan Cup, came out with the kind of the sideways arms out walk.
He did. He did it in the toothpick.
And he did the toothpick thing. But afterwards, he gave his promo. If you haven't seen, I highly suggest checking out.
Okay.
He said, there was once a foreign wrestler that told me I was going to be great, and you have no idea how much that meant to me. And he said I just didn't want to let him down or something to that effect. He said afterwards.
Which is kind of weird because he lost, but
no, but I mean, he just said in general,
Yeah, in life.
I remember this time that this foreign wrestler came over here and told me that I was going to be great, and he has no idea how much that meant to me. And I've used that as motivation my whole career, and
that's
that
beautiful.
Kind of thing.
That's absolutely beautiful, and just seeing that how this really, and I didn't even know we hadn't seen that match before this last week, right?
I honestly didn't even know it existed.
Yeah, and seeing that it come full circle, and like that, Scott Hall was in Japan and all that stuff. It's just really beautiful, and
he takes a big influence, I think, Tanahashi, from that 90s Attitude Era. At the age he is, he probably was really into that stuff with, Bret Hart, Steve Austin, Shawn Michaels. Probably
definitely
are huge.
See that.
You see that in his style, that those are huge influences on him, and didn't even really know about that history. And, I guess, Scott Hall was in a lot of New Japan stuff in the 90s because they had that whole NWO Japan kind of thing going on. So he had to pass in and out of there at times. But, I guess that kind of fits into a previous episode of Wrestling and Addiction.
Yeah.
And that also kind of falls into Wrestling and Age because, he's another guy that kind of hit his peak in the mid-30s. Mm-hmm. Early to mid 30s.
And I'm just gonna say, the guy was fucking good looking in his prime too. I mean, Jesus, like he was huge, right? Like, but not fat at all. He was
what's
muscled.
Also interesting about him too, I've heard this talked about other places too, is I didn't know about it as a 10, 12, 13-year-old kid watching Razor Ramon that he was basically Al Pacino and Scarface.
Oh yeah. I think I knew that a while ago because I kind of got the vibe.
I didn't know what the movie Scarface was when I was 10 years old. Are you kidding
I didn't
me?
know it as a kid, okay?
Right.
I didn't know it as a kid.
But when you were 18, 19 years old, when you first saw Scarface or in high school, Razor Ramon didn't exist anymore. And you're like, oh my God, that's freaking Razor Ramon.
Yeah.
So it kind of hit you later that, Scarface became more iconic. I think Scarface didn't really become like this kind of cult movie until probably the late 90s, early zeros, where it was like kind of in pop culture.
Posters in dorm rooms.
And that was long after Razor Ramon was done. So it's just kind of interesting how that was and the whole story of the character. And he did it great. And when I was a kid, I thought Razor Ramon was from Cuba. Like, I didn't know he was some white dude named Scott Hall, So anyway, just long story short, condolences to the family and friends. And,
absolutely.
He meant a lot to us too, and he was one of my favorites growing up, and unforgettable character. And, it's unfortunate that, it had to happen this way, but...
And who knows, man? We always... there's always a chance that we're going to do an episode on him because he definitely deserves it. So maybe we'll have more to say on all this, but
he'll definitely be mentioned. He's part of a lot of big moments in wrestling, and we'll definitely talk about him again.
Yeah, great.
He'll live on forever with that in regards to that.
Yeah, definitely. I absolutely agree. Good words from In-Ring Art Justin. So. Yeah, today we're talking about wrestling and age. Now, it's one of those generic topics like when we say wrestling and sex, but I like these topics a lot because it gives us room to talk about all sorts of stuff, you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. And, wrestling and age is just interesting too, because we just talked about how wrestlers don't hit their peaks until most of us are going through what they call a midlife crisis.
Yeah, I know. Seriously, I'm looking at my body and I'm like, oh, I'm deteriorating, and wrestlers are just getting better at this age. So
isn't that crazy?
We'll take this. We'll take this kind of in. We'll take it in order from youth to being an octogenarian or something like that, elderly, and we'll start out as wrestling as a kid. Now, you usually don't wrestle as a kid, right? I mean, that's kind of like we've already talked the Kenny Omega thing to death, right? There was her.
Right.
And you do have some kids that start early, but I think, it's not like football, like because of the fact that you have to cooperate and slam people and stuff. Wrestling is definitely not a children's sport at all.
I think we're talking about like collegiate wrestling and that kind of stuff, not just what my two kids do in the living room or in their bedroom, like beating each other or whatever.
But I mean, you're never going to pay to watch like two 8-year-olds
I don't know,
do fake wrestling.
What are the first, when I think of just kids wrestling and professionals, what is the first people that come to your mind? Because I'll tell you what they are for me.
Just the Kenny Omega one.
I just kind of think of the Hardy Boys.
Okay, well, that's like teenagers though.
Right, but those are kids, right? I mean, they were 14, 13 years old having backyard wrestling events, and people allegedly were showing up and going. I don't know if they were paying, maybe they were.
Well, let's use that to take a jump up then, too.
That's a professional wrestling. That's what makes you a professional, is when people are paying you money to perform, right?
Yeah.
So, I just think of Matt and Jeff Hardy lying about their age. And working house shows and stuff for WWE, that with youth, that's about as young as you can get being, in a ring professionally.
Well, like I said, let's move on to wrestling as a teenager. Like you said, this is when some people start wrestling, usually as a teenager, and you have your backyard, trampoline wrestling federations, right? Your Brian Alvarez and your Hardy Boys, but also you do have the Joshi thing, right?
And you even have Kazuchika Okada going to Mexico at 14 instead of going to high school to learn to wrestle. So I think what we're talking about with children, it's they begin training to wrestle, right?
Yeah. They begin training like as a teenager, and like. Obviously, if you're a huge fan, you're going to start learning how to play around and do certain things and throw a worked punch, at least try your best, and probably play on a trampoline and stuff like that. So, as a teenager, another name that comes to my mind is like this Nick Wayne.
Nick Wayne is the current one, yeah. I think he gets dates for GCW. I even heard recently that, I don't know if GCW is running in New York or something, and they found out what his age really was, and that didn't work out, like, because you have to be a certain age to... Mm-hmm. I think New York is one of those states still where you have to get, like, a license to be a wrestler.
Remember when New Japan ran a show there and they couldn't get an ambulance, and so they couldn't run the show for, like... I know that's different from what you're saying, but, like, the regulations are stricter.
I think that was some type of sabotage, by the way. That's a whole other podcast. No, I heard there was some kind of competing show that... anyways, someone was explaining it one day. I remember Rocky Romero Japan. Or something. Long story short, some states still require wrestlers to have some kind of athletic commission license, and you have to be 18 to have one in New York or something to that effect. And if you don't have that, then you can't perform. So, Nick Wayne is 16. I believe he signed a contract with, was it GCW or something?
He was with AEW, bro.
Was it AEW signed Nick Wayne? Okay, well, there you go.
And by the way, Nick Wayne is not 16, bro.
How old is he?
Hang on. Okay, so he's not 18 yet, so he's pretty close.
Okay, so he's probably 17.
His AEW contract will not begin until he turns 18. So
there you go. So he got committed to, like, it's a college.
Yeah,
to AEW.
Honestly, I think that I do think that if you're gonna start wrestling, I do think that doing it as a little child is not okay. I think you need to hit puberty and be a little bit past that, and I think 16, maybe 15 is probably the best age if you're a hardcore fan and you want to start training. That's
training.
Training. Yeah. You're going to learn how to run the ropes and take bumps, right?
Well, that's the thing I think with pro wrestling, especially if you do it in New Japan Dojo, you're not having a quote unquote match for a good couple of years.
Yeah. Well, at least a year, I think.
There's a lot of build up. So so when you're actually having a competitive, I don't know if competitive match, but just an actual match. I mean, there's just that's probably if you start playing baseball, you're playing t-ball, you're playing a game, you've never done anything, but you're playing a game. Football, you're going to play, what I mean? You're on the field pretty quickly in most professions. But
it's funny because
professional wrestling takes a lot more.
Even in a performative sport like, say, dancing, you can do that at 6 years old. But the huge difference here is just the danger and having to protect yourself and learning that and protecting someone else. And until your body is, you get to the point where you start having good control over your body, which usually you start getting as a teenager, right?
And other people's body.
And other people's bodies. Yeah, usually as a teen, you do start getting that control where you can start doing cool athletic stuff. And so, I mean, unlike dancing where, you're not going to see the kid dancers catching people, right? Like, they don't do that as a kid.
Sometimes a little bit. I mean, you got cheerleaders and stuff, and then you do have some kind of complex things. But, you're not, throwing someone and hoping they tuck their chin or anything like that.
Yeah, I don't even think with the cheerleaders that they do the throws until they're teenagers, honestly. I don't think they do those type of acrobatic maneuvers, which is a whole other thing because I've heard it has the most critical injuries out of all sports. Catastrophic injuries out of all sports.
Yeah, maybe.
But that's kind of as a teenager. There are up and comers, and that's usually when you're going to start training. Now, when we get into the 20s, that's when we start seeing serious skill in wrestlers.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's where maybe they, like most humans, maybe peak physically. They haven't figured out the whole mental side of it, though, but that's maybe when they're their most athletic. And that's probably when they work the hardest, not necessarily the smartest.
Yeah.
And depending on your, the way your body looks, you don't always look your most intimidating or strongest.
Yeah, totally. You
20s.
Look at Jungle Boy, right?
Yeah.
Or you look at Will Ospreay from 4 years ago.
Or just look at a young Shawn Michaels and
Jay
or
White.
Bret Hart. Yeah, or look at Bret Hart when he was in the Hart Foundation, kind of that chubby face, and Shawn Michaels the same way when he was with the Rockers.
Yeah, or they're real skinny and kind of they look like kids,
Right. So it's either they're kind of still have the quote unquote baby fat, but they're still in tremendous shape. But they're all of a sudden they hit their 30s. That's when all of a sudden, as long as they figure out how to,
you seen Okada as a kid?
I don't think so. Maybe.
Oh, dude, he is so skinny.
Right.
So skinny.
They start to fill out more. Yeah.
Not all people in their 20s are blessed like MJF is, right?
Right, yeah. Right.
So, I think, and you know what? Another thing with wrestling, and we'll get into this about when we talk about the 30s, but wrestling fans want to see wrestlers that have been around a while. And in wrestling, it does take years to truly get to a super over status, unless we're talking, you have world class championship wrestling. You had that family. What were they called in Dallas, Texas? The Von
Erichs.
Von Erichs. So a little different era there. Those guys were in their 20s and super over, and there is that story, right, of the kid that kicks everyone's ass, and that is a wrestling story that you can totally do, and it's a good story. But wrestling fans, they want to see people who've been around, and they want to see people who look serious. So a lot of times when you're in your early 20s and even the mid 20s, it's hard to get that hardcore respect because you still look like a kid. And I'm thinking like Daniel Garcia, great wrestler, right? Definitely a future ahead of him, but he still has that young look. And in 10 years, it's going to be a whole different ball game.
Which is funny because it's the complete opposite. So, for example, let's take LeBron James, right? Obviously in his 20s and just, looked, a lot younger than he does now. Had a different kind of thinner frame. But if LeBron James was a professional wrestler, he'd probably just be in the middle of his peak because you look at the way his body looks, just more intimidating and kind of tougher looking. That kind of applies. And I think
definitely.
You also learn to work smarter.
For sure.
Because you're not taking as many risks. You're a little more under control. Obviously, when you're in athletic competition where you have to win, maybe you need to be a little out of control and all that. But he's learned to work smarter, and I think it's one of the things where you obviously with cooperation from an opponent like you have in wrestling, being smarter and older kind of helps you, maneuver around that way.
And let's be clear here, wrestling is not about crazy moves or necessarily, these are all factors, but it's not about your body or necessarily even your look and you're not being scored. It is about being entertaining. And that skill of being entertaining, I think, is the most difficult thing and why wrestling takes a long time. A lot of wrestlers take a while to get good. Again, you have The Rock and you have your MJFs, but most wrestlers, to be really entertaining, that takes so much. That's a deep concept. You have to learn so much for that. I guess it would be called psychology, right?
Yeah, and I think also, unlike with other sports, you're not going to face resistance on the other side. So, I think a lot of athletes, when they, let's say baseball, basketball, football, whatever, hockey, when they get older, their mind knows exactly what they want to do, but their body isn't allowing them to do it anymore.
Yeah.
Because they're facing resistance from the other side.
Where in wrestling, the other side is trying to make you look even better.
So therefore, you're able to, perform a lot better at an older age because you're not facing resistance.
Yeah, no, totally. I agree with that. So, in the 20s, there are some wrestlers that do peak in their 20s, and I don't have a list of names here. I just know it's true. I mean, there are guys that hit it off in their 20s, and maybe they don't get pushed as much in other companies. It's possible. And again, in your late 20s, you start actually looking more like an adult. So the 20s, in my eyes, the 20s is probably when there's the most change in a wrestler. I wouldn't even say
looking more like an adult, but it's just
looking more like. I'm sorry, that's not the right term. Looking more like, I guess, what a mainstream professional wrestler looks like.
Right. I think that's when your look kind of, fully comes together. And I think when you're talking about guys that have peaked in their 20s, usually,
Kerry Von Erich, I guess, would be one.
Well, there could be things that happen that whether you don't take care of your body as well, or maybe you lose your hair or something like that makes you kind of lose the momentum that you build up. So, or you had a really bad injury or something to that effect, or accident or something.
Yeah. So, but would you agree with that though? That 20s is probably the biggest change period for most wrestlers.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean, because that's when they're probably getting the first amount of prominence, and you're able to notice it. And I think probably from that, early to mid 20s to 30 is when you start to see the most, probably what seems like even more, maturity and appearance wise is huge.
Yeah. So as far as current wrestlers in their 20s, I think there are so many great wrestlers. You got Kaito Kiyomiya from Noah, great wrestler who you saw wrestle Okada in that tag match, and AEW is chock full, right? We have Britt Baker, We got the four pillars, right? I think that probably MJF is probably the most talented for the 20s.
You got 20s. MJF, Sammy Guevara, Jungle Boy, and Darby, right? And I think Darby's probably almost 30. Brie Baker's probably about 30. Mm-hmm. But you have guys like MJF and Jungle Boy that aren't even in their mid-20s yet. So and you see a guy like Jungle Boy who's probably going to fill out a little more, and not in a getting overweight way, but just his body's just going to fill out.
Yeah.
And MJF, like we just talked about earlier, not everyone's him. He looks like he's pretty filled out, and physically, he looks like kind of at his peak appearance already at 24, 25 years old or whatever he is. And Sammy Guevara is another guy that has a very youthful face, but he looks like he already has that body that you develop in the mid 30s, early 30s. Mm-hmm. But he'll probably get even stronger. And Darby is just going to be probably that thin for a while. That's just his look.
Well, he's a cruiserweight, man. I mean, that's just how to describe him. He's got that.
And he's not. He could probably get a little thicker, like a Rey Mysterio, when he gets older. Mm-hmm. But I don't think he's a guy that hits the weights.
Yeah.
To be honest, but that's not his thing.
As far as wrestlers in their 20s, AEW does have a lot of great ones. Brian Pillman Jr. You got Top Flight, right? Those guys are really great. And they actually they have a vested interest in a lot of young talent. Hook, obviously, right? I mean, so
another guy that's probably going to fill out pretty well too.
Yeah. So probably one of the better promotions as far as the younger people. NXT 2.0, I'm going to say not so much. They have some good talent. Braun Breaker's incredible. Is he in his 20s?
What's his age? I don't know.
I'm finding that out right now.
I would imagine so.
Yeah. No, he is. He's 24. So.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's
great. Yeah.
Arguably, him and MJF already look like grown men out there.
Yep. Let me see. Is this guy in his 20s? I don't know. He is not. I was thinking Ricky Starks. He's not in his 20s. But yeah, a lot of good stuff coming from there. New Japan, a little different. Most of their good wrestlers now are in their 30s or approaching.
They're pretty much hitting their peak, or they're at the end of their peak. Right?
Yeah, which is kind of a problem actually, because Master Wato ain't going to pay the bills in 10 years.
Right,
but Will Ospreay,
it's going to be a completely different business by then with a company. There's going to be a little more of a blending with everything. But yeah, Okada's just hitting his peak, which is scary to think about.
Well, I don't even know. He might. Maybe he's not.
He might be the top guy in 10 years still. So,
Yeah.
He's only 33 years old. So, which is basically the first quarter of your career in pro wrestling, I guess.
Yeah.
He's still in that, which is just really scary. And you got guys like Tanahashi, who's pretty much on the decline. Still a great performer in all time, but he's on the decline. Naito is probably just starting his decline, right?
Yeah. I would agree with that. But again, Will Ospreay's 28, man. One of the best wrestlers in the world, if not the. That's questionable, right?
Sure.
Amazing. Yeah. Actually, now that I think about people in their 20s that I really love.
Great-O-Khan, I think, is still in his 20s, right?
Maybe. It's funny because he already looks like Tezuka almost. You know what I mean?
You know what's funny is I think
no, he's 30 now. He's 30.
Aaron Henare might be not even 30 yet, which is kind of interesting too.
It's definitely possible that he is. Yeah, he's 29, so he's about to be there.
Right.
Man, he's really slimmed down, actually. I'm looking at his picture. Wow, he's lost some weight and still remained muscular.
He looks good. The mustache thing is working for him, and maybe
I think he's cool. I've always liked him.
So, I think they have a little more younger talent than we think, and Jay White isn't even 30 yet.
Well, so I mean, not to mention Shota Umino and Yota Tsuji and all these new young boys.
They'll be fine. There might not be their domestic talent. That's Great-O-Khan is probably the closest to a domestic talent that's in that position where he can be. I think that who's a domestic talent there that's 29, 30 right now, other than Great-O-Khan.
Just Will Ospreay. Oh, domestic,
yeah.
I mean, you got
they still need that.
You got Master Wato and Doki actually.
Okay, well, I mean, those are both cruiserweights that I guess can transition. Well, Hiromu Takahashi's in his early 30s.
Okay, and Doki is 30 now, so my bad. It kind of bridging that gap.
And Hiromu's 32, so there's somebody 31, 32, something like that. So
yeah.
You do have some guy. I think they're going to be fine.
Now, I'll tell you this. Have you seen Francisco Akira or heard the name?
I have not.
He is really great, man. Very young guy who is an Italian wrestler that wrestled in All Japan. And he's getting older now, of course, as we all are, but he is a great young wrestler. 22 years old, man. Wow. God, he might be one of the better wrestlers of that age. And I think that he's 22. He's got, years and years ahead of him. I think you're going to see a lot more of him in the future, man. He's a great wrestler. That's a real young guy. So,
and what would you say? I know we're talking about it, but like when you talk about New Japan and the dojo itself, you don't really have guys breaking out of there until they're in their late 20s, right? Like,
well, it's true. It takes time because the way I think of it is like, look, you do there's like periods to this, right? Unless you're Okada, and obviously he wasn't in the dojo the same way, so it's a little different. But look, you do your dojo time, right? And then the real work begins once you get pulled back to the company.
I mean, a guy like MJF might be running ice packs out there still. You know what I mean? Well, if he was in the dojo.
Like, honestly, I just think once you get your character, that's when the real work starts, man. Because I look at Okan, right? And, like, I think he has so much potential. And I think he's really good, actually. And I can't wait to see how much he improves in the next 3 to 4 years. Like, I'm like, well, he's already putting on damn good matches, and he's just going to get better. So,
yeah, and I think he'll figure out a way to maybe make his body, I don't know how tall he is or whatever, but I think he's probably a little over 6 feet or something. But
he might, though his body though, I don't know if he needs to make too many changes. I mean, that look that he has, is kind of an intimidating look, and he looks good in tights, and he looks good on his long pants. So maybe the long pants got to go. But
I think I like the way he mixes up the gear, though.
That is cool. Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, there's a lot of potential there. But, wrestling in their 20s, it's generally, again, not when people are hitting their peak. But that's when you really start seeing, like, the serious wrestler that the person's going to become. So, moving on to when we think people hit their peak, which I agree, and that's the 30s. So 30s is, like, the wrestling years, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that's when you're kind of the mental and physical meet each other.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Exactly. Like you figured out your body by then and what you're going to do, and you've also figured out how to entertain and your character.
And I think your mindset gets to where you're able to play to your strengths and not to your weaknesses. You kind of figure that out by that time as well.
Yeah, you've got like over 10 years of matches. You know what pops the crowd. You know your moveset, right? You've been doing the same moves for 7 years, and all those moves are just like picture perfect. You got them good. Now you hope they are, right? Like not everyone is. There's wrestlers in their 30s that suck, but
you figure out how to train. You develop a reputation with people, so it's just the whole perfect professional mix.
Yeah.
I mean, you can compare it to like a career, at an office or whatever. You probably don't hit your peak until your mid-30s because that's when you get enough promotions and you get enough experience. It's really similar. You
know what's weird, Justin, is actually men usually hit their peak in their 50s as far as like office work and stuff goes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, as far as money, right?
Oh, well, yeah.
So...
I'm going to be completely checked out by then, to be honest.
He's like, dude, by then, yeah, fuck it. But, obviously we're not doing moonsaults onto the tables. At least, I don't think you did that since this year. You haven't done that at the office, right? Because you're at home.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to wait for a few weeks.
We're starting to come April 25th. We're supposed to go back, so I got to figure out how I'm going to pull those off.
Yeah. Well, you'll just have to work on the moonsault again, right?
Yeah, and probably not do as many high fly flows to the outside.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true. You got to protect your knees, Justin. So, I mean, it's almost like I don't have much to say about the 30s because that's like That's kind of when it hits, man. That's just like you look at.
Can we name a few wrestlers that are hitting that age out there now? Yeah, of course.
Well, it's like you name all the best wrestlers, right? Kenny Omega,
Kazuchika Okada. You know, guys like Seth Rollins and you know
Kevin Owens,
Sami Zayn.
Yeah.
You know, those are all guys that are kind of at their
Hangman is
physical and mental peaks.
31.
Hangman is still relatively young. Yeah.
Adam Cole.
Still young, but hit 30, yeah.
Yeah.
Those are all guys that are just starting that, you know, descent up the roller coaster right now. They're about halfway up that descent.
Now, is Naito 40 yet, or is he 39?
He's 39 or 40.
Okay, so Naito, like you said, is Shingo in his 30s?
Shingo is, yeah, probably 30, probably 40. I think him and Naito are about the same age. I think they're a year younger than me, so they're either 39 or just turned 40.
Yeah.
So those are guys that are just coming down from their peak. So they're not, you know, they're still very, you know,
I don't know about Shingo, bro. He still goes like a motherfucker.
Well, that's what I'm saying. He'll have a very slow descent, but he has started it, maybe. Or maybe he's just sitting at the peak right now.
You know, and as we know, like, nothing's universal, right? You got guys like Ishii who arguably are peaking in their later age, right? I mean,
yeah, just like, you know, the occasional actor that doesn't have a career until they hit their 40s, like I don't know, Danny DeVito or
well, I think J.K. Simmons, who was a big actor all throughout his career, but he was always a character actor, right? He didn't get those big roles until he got that look and that kind of. I think Ishii's style wouldn't work for someone in their 20s in a way. You got to be that older guy. So let's talk about people in their like 40s and 50s.
Especially with Ishii, is like he has a thick skull and he's very stationary. So.
Yeah,
he's figured out the perfect style for himself.
Absolutely. So when you talk about wrestlers in their 40s and 50s, I'm thinking like people who kind of are peaking then. I mean, Minoru Suzuki, absolutely.
Minoru Suzuki, Chris Jericho, but also I guess you got to think R-Truth. But I mean, you know, obviously
as a performer,
if you talk about all those guys, maybe with the exception of Minoru Suzuki, but Chris Jericho doesn't wrestle every night anymore. Either does R-Truth. Suzuki probably does a little bit more, but he does have a very stationary style, but he does take a lot of blows. But he's not doing a lot of tope suicidas or Canadian destroyers. But, you know, I also think back to, you know, guys like Lou Thez and, you know, Greg Gagne and all that stuff that were, you know, working late in the life, right? With kind of that stationary old tough guy, grandpa's gonna beat you up kind of thing, right? And that's when, you know, it was very mat based and ground attack kind of stuff. So I think it kind of originated with guys working into their older ages back then.
Yeah. Talk about Diamond Dallas Page.
Well, from what I know, Diamond Dallas Page is. He was, you know, kind of a manager up until his mid-30s and decided that he wanted to wrestle.
And what, like, was winning the championship in his 40s? There's a guy who kind of peaked later, right?
Absolutely. And that was a guy who, when you see him, you know, when he was managing, who we talked about, the late, great Scott Hall, when he was the Diamond Stud in WCW back then, was obviously a huge guy in terms of, you know, 6'5", and he did have a little thicker of a face, but when he hits that peak in his mid-40s, and even up to now, I don't know, that's just like for lack of a better term, that's just like a freak occurrence. I mean, I couldn't imagine being 35 and all of a sudden learning to take bumps.
I know.
I mean,
I am 35.
You're starting to train right now, right? But I think he was a guy that probably, you know, went to a gym regularly.
Probably a fit guy.
He had some idea of what he was getting into because he was around it firsthand. So it wasn't like, you know, he was just, you know, pulling you out of the machine shop and we're going to train you to be a pro wrestler and you're going to be a champion in 5 years. That was a little bit different. Still makes it phenomenal what he did, and, you know, one of the greatest stories in pro wrestling history. But yes, there's a guy that didn't hit his peak until his ascent started late.
Yeah.
climbing up and starting his career started in his, 30s, mid 30s, and then he hit his peak 5-6 years later.
And it's weird because if we talk about 40s and 50s, and actually I want to pull this back to talk about age a little bit, and I heard Meltzer talk about this, so this is kind of a sidebar here. Do you remember back in the day when being in your mid-40s was considered old in WWF? Where it's like, course, we don't want those old guys, right? But now, look at now. All the top guys.
Yeah, I mean, AJ Styles was a name that we should be throwing
AJ Styles,
out there.
Randy Orton, Rey Mysterio, Triple H, John Cena, Sheamus.
I mean, when you look at the guys
Bobby
that were
Roode.
in their mid-40s, like, I don't know, like, let's take a guy like Harley Race, who was in his mid-40s when he was wrestling, let's say. That guy looked like he was done, right? And then you see that he's only 6 months older than, Jericho was when he fought against Kenny Omega. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think, guys take care of themselves a little bit better, and there's a lot more nutrition and, cosmetics and all that kind of stuff that they can do to make themselves appear and perform like they're younger, right? I mean, you look at the average high school yearbook in 1955 and they all look like they're 30, 40 years old, right? I don't know what it is, right? Talking to someone like me who started getting completely gray in their early 30s, late 20s.
I know, dude. Wow.
So
what color was your hair? It was black or brown?
Dark brown.
Yeah, I know. Your Google picture, like, it just looks like, I was like, oh, shit, dude used to be really good looking. No, I'm just kidding. I didn't. I'm just kidding. You're a good looking guy.
Age. I think, from about, my wife will attest to this, from the age 30 to 40, I've aged about 20 years. Like,
oh, don't say that.
That's what happened.
I won't hear such a thing. But
lost all my hair, everything went gray, just kind of. Yeah, anyways.
Look, dude, you're still happens. A kid inside, so it don't matter.
Exactly. Mental age.
Yeah.
And I got no one to impress anymore.
Now, can we say that we've been talking about men's wrestling this whole time?
Yeah.
Yeah. We've been talking about men's wrestling.
We have.
Women's wrestling has different metrics, man, which
it does.
Is kind of sad.
It has less of a body of work to where it was taken seriously, so it's a little hard to judge. But I think,
what do you say that? What do you mean? Like, since it wasn't, because I mean, Mildred Burke was famous in like the fucking 40s or whatever,
right? And then you had like Mae Young and who's the other name I'm thinking of? Come on, who had Mae Young and Moolah, right?
Yeah, and then you had like Japanese women in the 80s and 90s,
right, and Mae Young and Moolah looked like they were 60 when they were probably 30, in what they were doing. So it kind of took over a whole new dynamic, and I think we're hitting. We finally hit that point where it's so mainstream now that I don't know. Like, you had some real women. I'm talking about just from an American standpoint. I think Japan was a whole other animal, right?
Well, I think in Japan, so when we say wrestlers peaking and stuff, we talk about men. A lot of this quote-unquote peaking has to do with pushing too, right? I mean, it totally does, because if you're winning all these championships and doing the best performance you've had, like, it's because you're being pushed, you're being put in that situation.
I mean, could you imagine, like, an Alundra Blaze now? She'd be huge. She'd be a huge star, if you had someone like Alundra Blaze or Bull Nakano or... That's the thing, is in that 80s, 90s WWE, there was a handful of women that were taken seriously, or just barely.
That's totally true.
You had Wendy Richter, you had, I mentioned, you had women like Ivory.
Luna Vachon?
Someone like Ivory, who was unbelievable. And when she was in the Attitude Era, she was already in her late 30s, early 40s, right?
Yeah.
And she was amazing. Imagine how she would do now. And then you had people that just missed this whole era, and that would be someone like maybe Gail Kim.
Yeah.
Right? And,
Gail Kim, she did miss it, but she wrestled into, I guess, her early 40s, right? And she was good the whole time. I mean,
she probably could get out there and give a couple more matches if she needed to, and would look great,
She's good with her rich chef husband, though. So
Yes.
I think this has a lot to do with booking and pushing. I think that the old style was to kind of like have the sexy younger girl, and once you start aging, you kind of fall out of that, right? I think that has a lot to do with it. But I think, at least in America, I think that's changing a lot. I think, honestly, we'll see Britt Baker into her 30s. I think we'll see, a lot of these people, and it's just a change in booking philosophy. Maybe you call it the women's evolution or whatever. But look at, the four horsemen of WWF or WWE women's wrestling, like four horsewomen, dude, they're going to be going for years more, right?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we have Charlotte Flair's in her mid-30s.
35. She's
and
my
she
age.
looks, and she's, at peak performance level, right?
Yeah.
Bayley's probably in her early 30s.
Becky's around there.
Becky is in her early 30s. Bayley, too. I think I just said her. Sasha Banks is probably about to is 30, 31 or something.
Yeah.
Asuka's 40, and she's still coming off an injury. So when
Asuka,
she comes back,
though, she's got to be the best, like, older wrestler for the women in WWE. You know what I mean? Like, 40, she's looked the same the whole time.
Yeah. And I'm trying to think of
incredible.
If they have too many women around her age right on their roster. I don't know.
Well, they had Mickie James, but they got rid of her.
Is another one that when she first started in WWE, she had a completely different look, and she's at peak physical and appearance and everything right now, which is phenomenal.
Lita wrestled recently.
Right. I'm talking about like the full time people. You got Trish Stratus pop back in here and there, and they all look great.
For sure.
And even when you see Tori Wilson, what she's doing and stuff like that, they all look like they could still do it. And same with even the Bellas, who were, I think things are changing.
At the Royal Rumble. I think I agree. Like, I think that these fans are getting a connection to these wrestlers, and they want to see these people wrestle and wrestle and wrestle.
What we're not saying is changing is the fact that they could perform, because that probably was always the case, but now they're actually being taken seriously and given the chance to, right?
Well, yeah, and that's what I'm saying is, like, yes, they do peak at their age probably, but they also have to be pushed, because look, if you and I run a promotion and we're like, you know what, we're like, once dude hits their 30s, we kind of want to put the younger guys over, right? Like, then those people aren't going to get that chance. So it is a booking philosophy that is helping these guys realize their potential. And they're doing that a lot in WWE with Brock Lesnar. He's in his 40s and dude's kicking ass right now, right? He doesn't have the craziest matches in the world, but as far as his psychology and performance, he's really high up there. One of the better performers.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
and I think a lot of it too is, maybe with women's performers in the 80s, once they hit a certain age, they just didn't maintain that same, even the men too, they didn't maintain the same training discipline or, the taking care of their body and that elite level.
Where now it's just also, that's part of that job. Like, to be competitive, you have to take care of your body. You have to.
We have everything from, training strategies and meal planning companies and supplements and just an overall better understanding of the human body.
Better medical care, right?
Right. So as long as you take advantage of technology and knowledge of people like nutritionists and all that, you could maintain your body at a peak level a lot longer than you could in 1978 or 1985.
You heard of Debbie Malenko?
Is any relation to Dean?
I don't think so, actually.
No, I don't know.
She wrestled in Japan in the 90s and stuff like that, and I believe she's still going, dude. And you know what? I think she might be in her early 60s or late 50s, and she still looks real good, too. Like,
well,
real
there you go.
good.
And I think there's a handful of Japanese women that are still performing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Emi Sakura, right? She's great. And she's fairly over. My sister, big AEW freak, she's like, Emi Sakura's my favorite girl wrestler.
That's awesome, yeah.
So, and I hope that Japan really gets this other mindset where, like, keep your wrestlers wrestling over the years. Like, keep them going, you know? I want to see some of these girls go into their 40s, you know, or 50s even if they can go. So
sure, why not?
Check out this Instagram of Debbie Malenko. I'm going to send you this, okay?
Okay.
I want, like, for an older wrestler, it's just absolutely incredible. For someone that was wrestling in, in 90s, you know, at the time Alundra Blaze was. Check that out. I sent it to you on your text message.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There it comes. Okay.
Look at her picture in her, like, MMA match or something. Yeah. She's doing MMA now.
Okay.
So,
wow. Okay.
Yeah, pretty impressive, huh?
Yeah, sure.
So,
Definitely.
like, as you said, like, the technology is getting better, the medical care is getting better, stuff like that. Like, I'd love to see Charlotte go into her, you know, honestly, I'm just going to say this, like, Charlotte already looks old, so maybe it might be the plastic surgery, I don't know, but I have a feeling she's going to look the same way into her 40s, so fuck it, push her.
But when you see her walk out, she still has a presence, and
yeah,
I mean, yeah, you know, but her body's still put together, like she's young and everything, and the appearance is still there, and the presence and the charisma. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, I do think she's one of the more overrated wrestlers, but well, let's not get into that right now.
But her physical presence is just head and shoulders.
She's a gym
above,
freak, dude.
Yeah,
and again, she probably has a trainer, and she probably has a you know, all
and
that
the charisma
stuff.
and the cockiness that she has are kind of far and few between.
Yeah. Even though she can only play a heel. Sorry. Now I'm
She just reminds me a lot of her dad. The way she moves and her body language is very similar, you know?
I would hope so. Sorry, now I'm surfing Instagram and just saw Chris Statlander's new gear. It looks awesome. You see that?
I saw that she kind of got rid of the whole alien thing.
Oh, looks great. Anyways, let's get off of that. Sorry, man. I'm just going to tell you guys, I probably shouldn't say this on the podcast, but my Instagram is following nothing but hot girls. So, anyways, yeah, so, you know, 40s and 50s, man, it's really beautiful. Some wrestlers are just so good at that age. And also, once you get that age, you know, I think I mentioned this before, but I'll repeat it. Wrestling fans, we want to be behind someone that we've been behind for years and years. And that's the reason that The Undertaker, right? We loved him so much in the later years. That's part of the reason Minoru Suzuki is so popular and why Hulk Hogan against The Rock was so popular. It's because they've been around forever, and we love that, right? And it's one of the rare sports where you can watch your favorite performer 30 years later, you know?
Definitely, and if you can also still see them, and then some, you know, it's like the only way you can really do that in another sport is maybe if your, you know, favorite player becomes a coach or, you know, an announcer, and that still does happen.
Is your favorite quarterback too. Troy Aikman? Do you watch him on the? Oh no.
No.
How about Dan Marino? Does he do
Dan
any?
Marino. Well, I think he's done some, like, you know, he did he was on the CBS crew, the pregame and halftime panels.
Is Dan Marino the Razor Ramon of football? Because he's never won a...
Yeah, in a way, yeah. That's
Super
definitely
talented,
a fair comparison for sure.
But
the greatest player to never win. Yeah, I mean,
it's close, huh? William Regal never won one either, by the way. But
and we can do a whole podcast on Dan Marino.
Oh no, we're not doing wrestling and Dan Marino.
Right.
I don't even know how we would make that connection. We'd have to like use the movie Nature.
Hey, I remember the Isotoner ads and commercials with him and
there's a connection here.
Yeah.
Of course you
Legion
do.
of Doom, and I'm pretty sure that if you just type Dan Marino wrestling, I'm sure some images would pop up. Because it was at that peak at time where they did kind of not blend, but you know, let's see. Because I know there was some kind of ads with
you don't gotta
maybe
look it
for
up.
Zubaz or something.
Oh God.
You know, like there was a Zubaz crossover with.
Dude, I wish we could get a sponsor for Zubaz.
I'm looking at a Zubaz first picture I see Dan Marino wrestling is him and the Legion of Doom.
Is it Zubaz or Zubaz?
Zubaz, one of those.
Those were bad. Those were actually kind of badass. I'm not gonna lie. Like my uncle had them. I think they were pretty fucking.
I don't think I had Zubaz, but I did have pants like that, the printed kind of baggy pants.
But did they have the zebra stripe?
No, but they had all kinds of wild, crazy color patterns. Like that was how I dressed probably when I was like in 4th or 5th grade or something like that. I had a couple pairs of those. That was the style.
Ah.
And like, you know, my hypercolor shirt or whatever.
Of course. So talk about wrestlers in their 60s and older, because guess what? It is a thing.
Well, I think, did we skip the 50s?
Well, I said 40s and 50s.
Okay, so we did talk about someone like Chris Jericho. We talked about AJ Styles.
Yeah.
Who else is somebody, you know, we got a guy like Randy Orton who's about to hit his mid-40s. Randy Orton.
Minoru Suzuki.
There's probably some other guys in WWE, like, I don't know, like Bobby Roode, Dolph Ziggler.
Yeah.
Another guy that's...
PCO's 54.
Just crossed
We talked
40.
about Brock Lesnar. And actually, you know, it's like I said, like WWE now, their top guys are all in their freaking 40s.
Yeah.
Whereas before, if this was the 90s, they would all be like sent somewhere else because being too old. But the thing is
we thought Hulk Hogan was quote unquote old in 1997 when he was 45 or 44 years old, leading the NWO. And then you got a guy like, you know, AJ Styles and
I know
Randy Orton or Brock Lesnar.
Tanahashi.
No one would ever... Tanahashi's kind of in that, you know, he's got some bad knees, but at least, you know, 4 or 5 of those guys, you're like, I'm not going to call him older. Like, I still want to see him wrestle for 30 minutes.
Fuck yeah.
Arguably, we never wanted to see Hulk Hogan wrestle for 30 minutes.
No, I wouldn't want to see him wrestle for 10.
I don't think he ever did have a 30-minute match. Not, you know.
Not in America.
Yeah, exactly. But also, it was different back then, and I think you weren't demanded to be as physically conditioned. I think someone was talking about it, like a guy like Okada, who just has amazing cardio and doesn't look like he's tired ever. I just think it's also, guys have better training regimens now. They don't just lift weights and eat protein, you know?
Yeah, they it's like a lot of training. Almost like reminds me of Bret Hart. It's like training to be a wrestler, not training to necessarily look the exact way.
Right. They train to be competitive athletes. You know, not just, you know, it's more than just appearance.
Although I will say, I think Kenny Omega may be the best trained wrestler. I'll just say that. Dude has a great body, and maybe him and Ibushi, right? They both have like the most, but that's genetics too. You know, genetics plays a big part in that, in how your body's going to look when it's.
There's some guys that, you know, you're telling me a guy like Chase Owens never lifts weights. Of course he works out and everything. It's just, you know, we aren't all destined to look like Kota Ibushi, right?
Yeah, totally. As far as wrestlers in their 60s and stuff, it happens. You know, usually by this time, a lot of guys retire. But, and by the way, as far as 50s, I forgot to mention Mochizuki. Amazing fucking wrestler. Masashi Mochizuki from Dragon Gate. And Dragon Gate has a lot of great older guys who are a little smaller, right? So, that could potentially help. Maybe not, though, considering Yoshino just retired and was super injured. But, Dragon Kid's a little older, and he's still called Kid. Mochizuki, maybe Mochizuki's one of the best wrestlers of that age. And with Japan, you also have, his name escaped me, but he's the guy in Noah who kicks a lot. He's fucking awesome. Actually, Noah has a lot of older guys, too. You have Sugiura, you have Fujita, who's not that great, but that's actually kind of a problem with Noah because you have, speaking of 60s and older, you have Great Muta in Noah, right? And a lot of people question if the dude should still be wrestling, but supposedly the booker, Nosawa Rongai, is a big fan of him. And so he's like a mark who's booking his childhood hero.
And I also think that Muto still thinks...
Yeah.
Maybe he thinks a little highly of himself.
I'm sure he still does. But you got Go Shiozaki. There's another wrestler who kind of has peaked in his older age, in his like 40s, which is pretty incredible considering he was. A lot of people last year were saying he was the wrestler of the year, and guy is, let's see, what is he now? He's 40, and he had the best year of his career, which is awesome. So as far as older in their 60s go, right? Did you watch that Tatsumi Fujinami and Fujiwara match?
I didn't see it, but then also I didn't really, from what I heard about it, I didn't, didn't really think it was a good idea to go back and watch it.
Yeah, okay. So when you get that old and you can wrestle, you are physically limited, right? Like in what you can do, in both offense and defense. Okay, so
and I think that's also maybe when your instincts and your mind might slow down a little bit.
Definitely
in terms of processing physical. I don't know. And I think a lot of those guys have, especially when you're talking about when they were in their peaks, they probably didn't take head injuries as seriously either.
Oh fuck no, they
stuff
didn't,
like
bro.
that. Yeah.
I looked up Undertaker. He's still in his 50s. That dude really declined quick, huh? In his 50s.
Well, you see a lot of those guys, bigger guy, and Undertaker was another guy that worked 300 days a year and probably didn't take very much time off, and you heard a lot of stories
too.
about him.
He wasn't a hardcore partier, but I heard he could outdrink anybody.
He would drink the JD a lot, and also, you always heard stories. He had a broken foot in the Hell in the Cell match, and he was a guy who did some just a big dude, like we've taught.
Did some acrobatic shit too for a big guy.
There's a lot of people that are 6'10", 7 feet. Got these NBA players like Anthony Davis who are like 6'11" and just have these big, lengthy bodies, and their bodies aren't meant to go through that type of.
Yeah.
When you're 6'11", you wear a size 18 shoe and you have kind of thin limbs, like your body's not meant. Look at like a guy like Kevin Nash. Mm-hmm. Bodies aren't supposed that are that big. That's a lot of weight and torque that you have for being that age, for being that size. No,
you're totally right, because, actually being that big actually can result in health problems. And when you look at, like, people with gigantism, like Andre the Giant, that's, like, real bad for the body. And really, your
there's a cardiovascular problem
down
right away, yeah. There's heart issues that come with that. But just having a big body like that.
In general,
It's not meant to move at the same rate, just take a giant pickup truck and you put a V4 engine in it, it's going to move way slower than a sports car, and it's just not meant to be.
Do they make V4s? Isn't it?
I'm just saying, if every car had the same engine, obviously the heavier ones would not move, and if you did try to push it would not be good for the car.
Yeah. So as you get older, obviously things deteriorate, right? Like, so most of the guys that are wrestling in their 60s and 70s, kind of, it's nostalgia.
It's nostalgia, and it's usually a very abbreviated performance.
Barely any bumps.
Exactly. And it's just a pure nostalgic thing.
I'll tell you this. The best wrestler I've ever seen in their 60s or 70s was this guy in All Japan, and I don't remember his name because I got All Japan TV for like 2 months, and I watched every show. Very good, very entertaining, by the way. This was pre-pandemic, but it was actually totally worth the money. It was actually great. But they had this real old guy, and he was so funny because he was a comedy wrestler who was self-aware of his age. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So he would go for the body slam, and then, my back went out. Right. You know what I mean? And that guy was great. Totally was in on it, and just fun as fuck. He wasn't trying to be a badass, He'd go for a kick and then, like, pull his hamstring, right? And
so,
he'd be like,
self-deprecating, kind of.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about Sting doing the freaking New Jack splash off of the...
Oh, God.
Off of the, You know what, though? Like, if someone told you, hey, this, I don't know, think of the wrestlers in that age
62,
category.
By the way.
Yeah, but when I saw him do it, I didn't feel like I had to turn my head. I thought it was great.
Yeah, Sting may be one of the best professional wrestlers of that age that I've ever seen.
And he doesn't do it a lot. It's very, that's where you see that peak mentally. Obviously, he probably has guys like Tony Khan and all that don't want to put him in a 30-minute Iron Man match or whatever. But there's a self-awareness that's there And, just having that peak mind still allows him not to push himself too much and work to his strengths. And even though I see him out there wearing the shirt and the, long sleeve and stuff, the all black, I don't think he's out of shape at all.
No, he's a good looking guy for his age, for sure. And he is obviously, when you talk about any group and demographics, there's always going to be that exception to the rule, right? With everything we talk about, there's wrestlers that peak in their 40s, there's wrestlers that peak when they're 22, and this guy, he is he's great at his age.
Not a full-time wrestler by any means, but definitely somebody that doesn't go out there and embarrass himself at a late age.
Well, and you wouldn't want him to be a full-time wrestler. Sorry, I was just reading this that I just, like, randomly my eye caught that. It's like, after confessing his adultery, substance, and alcohol abuse to his then wife, I didn't know he went through all that, in 1998. Wow.
Who's that?
Sting.
Oh, you know what? I can tell a story. I used to be
steroid user.
I used to be a sports writer.
Okay.
And, for a local Los Angeles paper. And, I covered mostly high school sports.
Mm-hmm.
And one time an editor came to me and said, hey, this was probably, circa 2006 or 7.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. And, hey, we want you to do a story. The wrestler Sting? I'm like, yeah. Well, his son plays for a school, and I guess Sting lets them use his house, his backyard or whatever as their practice field.
Okay.
So they're like, we want you to do a story on it. I'm like, okay, great. And I'm like, so they gave me the number of the football coach, and Sting's from Southern California. He's from
he got
Santa
that
Clarita area.
Surfer, he was born in Omaha, but yes,
right.
He grew up.
He went to Hart Beach High School, which is I don't think anywhere near Venice Beach, like 40 miles from Venice Beach.
That was he was billed from.
He lived in Santa Clarita, which is kind of I don't know if you ever heard of Six Flags Magic Mountain is in Valencia.
I want to go there, bro. I heard they have like the best roller coasters in the nation.
I haven't been there for 20 years, but yeah,
we'll go.
He's probably it's about a 45-minute drive from where I live, but anyways, his kid went to school out there at a small high school that they didn't even play. They played 8-man football, and so I started doing the story. I talked to the football coach. He's like, yeah, Steve Borden lets us use his backyard, and they made a field out of it, and and first I kept trying to get have Sting interviewed for the story, but I just couldn't get no one really gave me a number. I couldn't get a number for Sting.
Mm-hmm.
But I did a story basically that Sting let them use the football field. I don't remember the whole. I bet you if I did some Google searching, I could find the story somewhere. But long story short, as I'm covering a football game where it was the school playing against another school, and I saw on the other side. I was in the press box or whatever, and across the way I saw Sting on the sidelines. No makeup at the or anything, of course.
Oh yeah.
But this was probably in his TNA days, so we're talking the mid 2000s.
Main event players.
Yeah, so I wasn't really following wrestling that much, but of course I knew who Sting was. But so that's my little connection with Sting, I guess.
There you go.
And that was at a point in 2007, 2006 when you would have talked about him being on the downside of his career,
I know, isn't that crazy?
It really is.
And the dude is making a great comeback. The last thing I want to talk about with wrestling and age is a few things here. Well, first of all, I just wanted to say, like, we talk about wrestling demographics and people that watch wrestling, the fans' age, and I will say wrestling nowadays is a very much a thing for people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and older. That's kind of just how it is, right? But wrestling in general, do you agree with that?
I would agree that's about how it
Or that's who watches
out.
It?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you do have, I don't know very many, my son's 7 and 10 years old. I don't think any of their friends watch it or anything like that, like we did when we were kids.
Yet you force him to wear Jushin Thunder Liger shirts.
No, he wanted to wear that. He likes that shirt, so he
okay.
wanted me to buy. He actually likes it,
That's
and
cool.
wants to wear it, but he won't.
Does
watch
he know
wrestle.
who Jushin?
Yeah, he does.
Okay.
He does.
I'll tell you, I got my kid, who was 5 years old at the time, to. He was real interested in New Japan. Actually, big Okada fan.
He loved John Cena when he was like 3 or 4 or 5 years old.
Oh, okay.
But that wore off because I took him to a house show and I got him all the Cena stuff and he was walking around with a towel and.
Well, I'm glad you don't force them though, right?
No. I'll say, hey, you want to watch this? No, like you don't want to, force them into doing something.
Let them enjoy their own thing.
I want them to enjoy it naturally, and if they don't, then oh well.
It is what it is. That's Dad's thing. That's not really for me. But the cool thing about like wrestling, the best wrestling, just like the best sports, is literally like timeless. Any people could watch it from any age, and that's part of the joy of wrestling, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean,
we loved it as kids.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah,
and I mean,
good wrestling is good wrestling, right?
Yeah, and it's weird because you look at it with different eyes nowadays, right? But at the same time, it's just as entertaining, and that's what I love about it. Is we watched it as kids, and it was entertaining in a whole different way. I mean, but now we can see through a lot of the stuff, and guess what? It's just as entertaining, if not even more so.
We obviously know way more now than we did back then.
Yeah.
Unless you were just like a pure observer reader
at the age of 5. The only Well, it
wasn't even there for you really. There was no Twitter in 1995, right?
The only thing that sucks about being older and watching wrestling is that you know what matches are bad, but when you're a kid, even the bad matches seemed kind of cool still.
Well, that's because you thought you still thought it was like a real thing, right? I mean, when you were 8,
don't
9.
remember. Now, when I was a little kid, I don't remember thinking it was real or fake. That never occurred to me. But in the Attitude Era, and this is a whole episode I'd like to do, actually, so I don't want to get too much into that,
like,
actually.
Santa, the Easter Bunny, and
yeah. But, it's not like one day I just woke up and was like, oh my God, it's all... Actually, but like I said, that's an episode I want to do, so let's not talk too much about that now.
Yeah.
That is wrestling and age. Age has been used as an angle before. With AEW, they got the older guys helping out the younger guys, and you've had wrestlers get mocked for their age in some promotions and stuff like that.
Or just you've had times when their age is completely ignored and not mentioned as well.
Yeah, that's true. And finally, I wanted to talk about supporting older wrestlers. And what I'm saying by that is that wrestling, it pays a toll on the body. There are a lot of wrestlers who never hit it to super stardom, and they're real old now. And wrestling was all they knew how to do.
I mean, you talk about, a short window to earn your peak salary, right?
Yeah.
And for a wrestler, since they don't really hit their stride until maybe their late 20s, until their early 40s, that's only, let's say 12 to 15 years where they're actually at their peak performance level.
And who knows how long they're actually really making good money.
Right. And not only performance-wise, but I guess you can say the average wrestler maybe gets a 3 or 4 year window where they're actually making that huge money, right?
Yeah. Huge relatively, right? They're not making anything close to what a football player makes.
Right.
A punter.
You'll have a NFL player that will get at 25 years old when they hit their free agency the first time, they'll get a 8-year, $200 million deal. They're not going to see all that money, but they're going to get that $56 million signing bonus or whatever. But then you have a wrestler that might finally get his peak and he's making 6 figures for 7-8 years, and then that's it. And then he's working at a car dealership or, whatever, if he can't maintain it.
Yeah, and the reason
not to say that's a bad career, but what I'm saying.
No, but it's not the same as being on top of the world as a wrestler. The thing I want to tell guys is, you're going to see GoFundMes and stuff like that because it's part of the biz, and you're going to see all this stuff of wrestlers that, are hurt. You have the great Kamala, right? That was one where he was amputated and stuff like that, and... if you have that extra money and you're making it well, I always say, support support those guys because WWE's not taking care of them.
And also maybe like other organizations like Cauliflower Alley.
Absolutely, that's a big one. Yeah,
those are good ones to support. And
Cauliflower Alley for sure. So you guys can check out Cauliflower Alley Club. Google that.
Yeah, actually, I just somebody just designed a shirt for Scott Hall that plays off of his. They still have a window left where you can get it, but they made it a Scott Hall ECW shirt. And all the proceeds are going to Cauliflower Alley.
There you go.
And the Chris Heron and the Heron Project, which is the concussions or some, I think.
Yeah.
So all the proceeds are going to that. So Cauliflower Alley Club, I hear, is a great thing. I haven't joined, but I hear it's a good thing to join. And there's a convention in normal times that you can go to.
Vegas, or is it just?
I think Vegas. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and it's a big deal. I mean, although
buy a shirt from their pro wrestling tee store. There's a lot of retired wrestlers that still have merch you can buy. So
yeah,
contribute.
Yeah, great. That's a great way to support these older guys that have been through the ringer. And maybe once in a while you go up to Virgil and actually say hi to him and shake his hand and take a picture with him for $160. But
and I'd also make a habit, if you are going to these indie shows and you got these young wrestlers, I would always make plans to walk out with some kind of merch, because especially you can buy it right directly from them. If you're going to some type of indie show, buy some merch.
Yeah.
Support those guys, not just buy the ticket, but come out with the shirt and buy it right from their hands, because that money goes right in their pocket. So support them, because they only have that window of time where they can be out there doing it.
Yeah, and if, at In-Ring Art is selling stickers, there's only this window of time that he can sell stickers and T-shirts. So yes, really buy Justin's stuff, guys.
I will say that I do have a new sticker set out that features Bret Hart, Owen Hart, Darby Allin, and Hiromu Takahashi.
Ooh, you added Owen Hart this time.
I did. You didn't see the Owen Hart?
Yeah, I did, bro. I'm playing it up for the crowd.
Okay. Right, I'm sorry. I didn't get the script.
It's all good.
$12 free shipping. There you go.
There you go, guys. Well, guess what?
And also, I have hundreds of drawings as well, and T-shirts at T Republic.
Well, I'll tell you what, Justin. Can you go a little longer?
I could with my crap.
Well, we're gonna talk about a few more things.
Yes, let's go. Let's go.
Well. We're gonna take a quick break, and we will be right back, and we'll talk about the New Japan Cup and a few other things before we get going. Okay.
Okay. Good. I'll go get another beverage.
All right. We'll be right back, guys. Alrighty, you guys, thanks for waiting. I know it's been a while. Justin and I took a much-needed break, got some stuff done, and we're back for just a little longer to talk about a few more things. Justin, how do you feel about the New Japan Cup going on right now?
I've been piecing it together. I think the last... I've skipped a night or two, I'm not going to lie. But
I have as well.
I watched the most recent one, and what I've been enjoying about the pacing of it is I love that I've been able to skip the tag matches at the beginning and then go and enjoy maybe 2 to 3, less than 20-minute matches.
Yeah, like an hour or an hour and a half of wrestling.
There's been a nice kind of lightness to it that I've been able to consume it a little bit better. I gotta say, my favorite match of the tournament so far has been Hiromu Takahashi and Minoru Suzuki.
So that
Am I wrong? I loved it.
I think I still like Shingo versus Ishii maybe a little more, but they're both epic level matches. Would you agree?
They're both. I agree 1,000%. But I have seen their match. I've seen.
You've seen that same thing before, right?
Yes. And don't get me wrong, it's tremendous. It's like you have a restaurant where you go and you get the same thing every time because it's so good.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I'm not even gonna try to argue or convince you. I almost totally agree. I can't.
And I know that they've probably had one-on-one matches before, but I think it's been a while, or maybe it never happened where there's been a Hiromu Suzuki one-on-one match.
What a unique format they went with. really one of the more unique matches I've seen since what I compared it to was
the Ibushi
Taichi and Ibushi, right? But I thought it was even more unique in a way. What'd you think of Minoru Suzuki's hand in his chest?
You know, I love Hiromu as my favorite wrestler, and he just has to remind me, and I'm glad that he's finally hitting back his stride. But the question I have is, what is Hiromu's his ceiling?
God, I'm starting to really feel like he's got to go to heavyweight at this point.
I mean, is he a heavyweight? Is he a future IWGP heavyweight champion? Or is he like Liger, where he's going to go up to the heavyweight and just get and lose every time?
You know, he's a short guy, so I hope that... don't make me get into why the whole split is bullshit anyways, but this tournament shows that why the split is bullshit, and you got someone like Hiromu just putting on these epic matches and just one of the smarter...
I think at the very least Hiromu's earned him a shot at the openweight title by beating Evil.
Yep.
And why can't he be a guy that takes that and elevates that title?
You're going to have to ask Gedo that, bro.
Yeah.
Because I agree with you. Why
can't he win the New Japan Cup and challenge Okada?
Why the fuck not?
I mean,
I agree. It's just begs that question. When you put these things together, you got to say, like, what the fuck? Like, we want more of this, dude. I want to see Hiromu versus Ibushi and Hiromu versus Shingo. And
But here's the thing I have a question for you for. I don't have the numbers in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we've kind of hinted at it and talked about it. You know, merch sales, overall popularity in New Japan. Hiromu's in the top 3 or 4, right?
Fuck yeah, dude.
It's gotta be. You have Okada, Naito. Do you slip Hiromu right in there at 3, right?
I mean, Tanahashi's always in that mix, but
Tanahashi,
yeah.
Those are the big 4 popularity-wise. Of course, they're all going to be, you know, domestic talent. But in terms of merch, but then at the other side of it is Hiromu does have a charisma and a colorful personality. In a way, you could compare him to a Scott Hall, Razor Ramon, where maybe he doesn't need the title to be over, or doesn't need to have something like that.
I feel like you're catastrophizing his career. Like
I'm just saying.
So
he's well, that's the whole he doesn't need it, quote unquote, label.
Any amazing wrestler, I guess, doesn't need any title, right? But I mean, it helps secure. Right? Well, no, it helps secure their legacy, man,
and it legitimizes them, you know, as a former blah blah blah, right?
Yeah. So,
but I don't know. I just wonder, you know, he's 5'7", but then I've seen Eddie Guerrero win a world title, dude. He was 5'6".
It is to the point where he. Look, the guy...
Rey Mysterio won a world title.
Yeah. No. Like, I'm telling you...
So I don't know about the height thing, you know?
No, he should... I'm just saying, I'm telling you what Gedo might think, okay? I don't care. He's awesome. He should be...
AJ Styles was 5'7".
Yeah. He's 5'9", bro.
Nah. AJ Styles probably 5'8".
He's taller than Hiromu. Hiromu's probably 5'4" in real life. But the thing is, dude, here's the thing, man. Like, no, fucking... If I'm Hiromu right now, you gotta start, like, you gotta go to Gedo or whoever else or the president and be like, dude, I am over as fuck. I'm putting on some of the best matches, and if you want to keep me in this cage you call the junior division, I'm going to AEW at this point. Because, dude, you just can't... He's so much bigger than that, man. So...
I don't know what AEW would do with him in terms of that, but...
there's no weight classes in AEW.
Not yet, I guess.
So I'm saying, like, he could be pushed. He could be pushed, and he could win championships. And I think he's good enough. I think he's better than a lot of the wrestlers in AEW. I think he's better than 90% of the wrestlers in AEW.
Yeah, of course. I mean, like I said, he's my favorite wrestler still. Modern wrestler, Hiromu, Naito, those guys, Okada, those are, you know, top of my list.
Well, what's his next match? What's Hiromu's next match? Do you know that off the top of your head?
Let me look. I just saw it. I'll tell you right now.
Okay. And we'll figure this out. Because, Hiromu could win. Is it Jeff Cobb? I hope to God not.
No. I don't know. Let's see. Where do I?
Okay, radio silence. That's okay. That's okay.
He beat Evil.
Yeah,
and I think he might be going against someone like Sima Okada.
Yep. Which we'll talk about.
It's Cobb and Naito.
Mm-hmm.
It's Ospreay and Zack Sabre.
Okay.
ZSJ.
Hang on, I got the Sport of Pro Wrestling right up right now. That's where you go.
Right.
Okay, Sport of Pro Wrestling. So, we're going up here. Sorry for the radio silence, people. And we have... Where is that fucker at? He's on the right side. I swear I saw him there. Okay, now I'm lost.
All right, I'm gonna find it here.
Who beat Sonata?
Oh, that was Ospreay.
Okay, that was Ospreay. Okay, there we go. Hiromu, and then we have Evil. He beat Evil, right?
Yeah.
So he's gonna go against Shingo. Oh my god!
That's first of all. You just talked about you wanted to see that match. You're getting it, and he had a really good run in last year's New Japan Cup. Don't forget, he lost to Okada in the semis, and that was a great match.
Yeah, I think Shingo's going to beat him, and I'd be okay with it, to be honest.
I don't think you can
the same stable.
It would be awesome to see, and I think it would be if they went through with it. I'd be all for it, but I think it's really hard to put him past Shingo.
So
I'd sign off on it.
Yeah,
but just thinking logistically and all that stuff, Shingo's got to go over.
Well,
it'll be a great match.
You know what's funny, though? It's like my match of the tournament is Shingo. Your match of the tournament is Hiromu. And now they're going against each other.
And they might just...
fucking nuts is that, bro?
And it might just be our favorite match of the tournament.
It might blow my mind. So let me tell you what my thought is here. I think Shima's going to beat Okada, dude.
Wow, that would be something. I don't know. I mean... They can't have Okada win this thing, right?
You don't want Okada to win, okay? But you also don't want Okada to go... It's perfect, because you also don't want Okada to go against these huge money players. You don't want him going against Jeff Cobb. That's like another show.
Well, what's great is, that if Shima wins, you got something in your back pocket that you can revisit as a filler defense. Dude. And a crossover show, and then that's when Okada gets his win back, right?
Well, and check this out. Okada went against Marufuji already. He defended the title against Marufuji years ago, right? So I think Shima is a legend. They're treating him like that in New Japan right now. So it's not embarrassing at all for Okada to lose. In fact, is
he's part of GLEAT, right?
I guess it's GLEAT. GLEAT. Look, I'm just going to tell you this. It's supposed to be the word great, but it's like misspelled in Japanese. So
right, the L's and the R's.
Yeah. But he's a Dragon Gate legend.
Right.
So
I mean, there's not a chance that they're going to just sign him to the roster, is there?
No, because he's been doing his own thing, and he will keep doing his own thing. But here's the thing: you get 2 matches out of him if he wins. I think that's where the money is. You do the match, you have him go against Okada, he loses later, and there you go. You get 2 big matches in a row. That is enough to fill a house.
So this is assuming that he wins at Sakura Genesis is when the New Japan Cup winner gets their title shot, right?
Well, did they announce Sakura Genesis already?
No, but I mean, isn't that kind of the tradition?
Some years they don't do Sakura Genesis, so I'm not sure.
Well, it's the one around that time, right?
Yeah.
So then after that, you have something in between Dominion and what would be the Sakura Genesis show. So maybe that's when you can have Sema slip in, and assuming that Okada beats the New Japan Cup winner.
Yeah. But that's like kind of my idea that Okay, it's kind of possible, right? Like I could, if anyone's gonna beat Okada, I just think that might be the.
Or I could just see them having Okada win the Japan Cup and
Yeah, we got
just
Wrestling
dominate.
Dontaku coming up, man.
Okay, so
In
that's
May.
when you're gonna get the.
Yeah.
And then June is Dominion, so there it goes. Their next big show's in May. No, they gotta have something.
Yeah, May 1st, but in between then, there's like all sorts of stuff in April. The Golden Fight Series, whatever that means.
Okay, so that's maybe when you can have your filler defense.
Yeah. Besides that, there's a lot of stuff in America. There's one called Hyper Battle 22. Actually,
Hey, we're gonna get in America, not anyway. You're getting John Moxley and Will Ospreay.
Oh, that hasn't been confirmed, has it?
It has.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It might be at the
Chicago?
Windy City,
Yeah,
the Chicago
yeah.
show.
Yeah.
Needed a
Well, and
big
you're
match
getting
for that.
Killer Cross too.
Eh.
Dude, did you know Killer Cross actually like has hair?
Yeah, I did. Because
I'm gonna tell you,
I've seen him in person, and he has the whole. Yeah, he just looks good with a shaved head.
I gotta tell you, for someone that's like, you shave your head and stuff, does it piss you off when like guys with hair shave their head?
I shouldn't care, but yes, it does. But unless you're like Killer Cross just looks. Some people just look better without hair.
Yeah.
But I do see some people. It's like, man, you got that hair. Like, enjoy it or grow it. But
I know,
and
you
there's
just
some
don't give
people
a fuck.
that shave their head that don't look good with a shaved head. And you're like, dude, you got hair. Why don't
I
you?
think he looks way better with hair, dude, to be honest. But
Grass is always green on the other side. So
True. So,
really don't care.
yeah, this Hyper Battle 22, which sounds like a fucking Gundam episode, that's going to be in April. And, so April 9th is the Hyper Battle at Ryogoku Sumo Hall. So,
It sounds like a Street Fighter edition or something.
yeah, exactly. So maybe it'll be at that Hyper Battle, or maybe it will be at the Golden Series or Dontaku. Dontaku is obviously their like third biggest show of the year, probably. So, that one, shit. I hope by then we're pulling guys from America. I still think it's fucking nonsense. Let's not get into that. But
I think it's going to be a while, just simply because I think we're going to have another surge in a month or two. It won't be as bad as the last Omicron, but we'll have another surge. I don't think we're getting. I think Wrestle Kingdom next year having tourist 60-40 that it will happen.
Well, Japan's like the slowest country with restrictions. Yeah. It's been to the point where I actually like politically, I'm almost like, you guys are actually hurting your own country.
I think to myself, there's got to be a lot of businesses and industries in Japan that are really being hurt by not having tourism.
Dude. I mean, Japan has probably one of the bigger tourism, like out of a lot of countries its size in the world. So
yeah,
I can only imagine. It's just nonsense that. But besides all that, like tourism industry, I'm just talking about people yelling, which is just. I started so cool with it, and I always am okay with the restrictions. But at this point, like, selfishly, I guess it's really affected my. Let's not talk about.
I wonder when you're really gonna get some like people just doing it.
They have kind of, though. In Dragon Gate, they're kind of started doing it, and then but Japan, they follow the rules, right? That's part of the culture.
Yeah. I know my wife, like, we're in Osaka, right? That's where she's from, and the baseball. They have two baseball teams, with the one that's by far the most popular is the Hanshin Tigers.
Oh yeah, Hanshin, yeah. They have the cheers and stuff.
Yeah, well, every team does, but the Hanshin, I've been to a couple of Hanshin games. It's just an amazing experience.
Those dudes just like, dude, like unlike America, they literally do cheers every time someone's up to bat, huh?
Every player has their own song they sing the whole time.
Jesus,
it's like constant noise. And it's amazing. It's fun.
Yeah.
But they had to stop a few of their games last baseball season because the fans were too loud.
Oh, that's so stupid.
And that's an outdoor, event.
Christ.
Their stadium is an outdoor stadium, so it's like,
Yeah.
And I've been to, a lot of games at Kings games this year, and they're cheering like
Stupidly loud. You
Yeah.
went to see New Japan, dude.
It was outdoors, and of course you were gonna cheer. Like, I just think that there's an extra. But they've avoided, huge numbers. I mean, they've gotten some, but you also have a country that has a little overall better. The average person's in a little better health and shape to begin with to deal with something like this, but you can't get it sitting there being quiet, I guess. You have a lot less chance of getting it than screaming and spitting in people's face, right? So
yeah, but I don't know, dude. As a pretty far left liberal,
which I am.
I'm telling you, they need to bring that back real quick. I mean, masks and yelling.
I don't know.
Do
they still have attendance?
No, they do, but they've lifted it quite a bit. They had their biggest show recently in Korakuen in like a long time. So,
but they're also not really selling that many tickets to these shows, right?
They had over 1,000 in Korakuen.
But I think also the roster's not intact enough to where they need the Gaijin guys to get back over really to get people behind it too. I don't think they're going to fill. I mean, they had some really pitiful crowds for.
Dude, this New Japan Cup, yeah. There was one show where the audio was terrible. The venue had terrible audio, and the cheering kind of like bounced off the ceiling. And it was like, I think it was the Naito Tanahashi match, maybe, or maybe I'm wrong on that. But I was like, God, this sound is.
What about that kind of 360 camera they were using for a couple shows and then just abandoned it?
No, thank you. I'd rather just have a good replay.
And poor Kevin Kelly and the Japanese announcers that have to use the mask when they're announcing too. Yeah, for sure. Have you seen, dude? Have you seen El Desperado's like commentary mask? It's really fun. Mask. Yeah.
Well, no. He's got a commentary mask where he doesn't have to wear eye makeup.
I've seen it. Yeah.
It's like he's got the Liger eyes,
right?
Which and then of course the mask under the mask. Although if you've been wearing a mask for 10 years, it's probably not as big of a deal.
Or Doki is the most cautious.
He's been worrying about it before the pandemic, dude.
That's what I think. Like, I don't really. Sometimes, you get sick of wearing the mask when you're in places, but it's like, dude, if Doki can go out there and wear a mask, you can do it.
Yeah.
Go to the grocery store, right? I mean,
I'm surprised they don't make the wrestlers wear masks in Japan, but it's just
the referees do.
Yeah, so. When you love something so much and you see it actively, like, and it starts to be that like you feel like they're overdoing it. It's painful, man. It is painful.
I think the masks in Japan are gonna be there for as long as I can.
Dude,
think.
You know what? Like America and Canada, actually, like I've seen a lot of groups and things that are planning events in 1 year, and they're like, you need full vaccination and full masks, and
they're starting to peel back on it out in here.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, man, this kind of sucks to say. Look, this probably is going to be a flu-like situation where, and hopefully, we've talked about this a million times, bro. Let's move on totally. So,
seriously.
Yeah. So, just a few more things I wanted to talk about real quick before we get out of here.
We're going to see Hiromu and I'm going to wake up to Hiromu and Shingo, I think, right?
Yeah.
So I don't care if there's no crowd for that. I want to see that match, and
we need a sound. We need a soundboard for when we start talking about COVID restrictions that we can just stop ourselves and move on.
Right.
So I don't want to talk too much about it, but I thought Dynamite was good this week.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that main event. It's great.
Yeah. Well.
And
the main event.
And it was
Thunder Rosa versus Britt Baker.
Yeah.
I really liked the Yuta Wheeler angle.
Yes,
right.
With Regal, that was great. A little tease for something in the future.
Yeah,
I love that whole situation. And remember it might have been our last episode. I'm like, man, they could really use a guy like William Regal, not only for what he can do as an authority figure or whatever, but. He's got Ring of Honor now, and I think he needs a little more input with the booking.
Yeah, well, he definitely needs help. But yeah, I
and I'm not saying needs help in a bad way, but
no,
I think Tony
that
Khan
he's doing
needs
too
to
much
delegate.
shit, bro.
Yeah, right. I think he needs to delegate and give stuff to people he trusts, and
Dude,
William Regal would be great.
People are always like, oh, he runs a football team and a soccer team. It's like, bro, he does way more than that. He's got like a sports analytic company, like, shit, dude.
Yeah, I mean, he does a lot of stuff, and we're talking about in 2 different countries, and he's touring with AEW, and then he has the Jaguars, and
although I'm guessing that AEW is his main job.
That's
nowadays.
his number one. I don't think he does all. I think he's the most involved with AEW. He's not.
Yeah.
I don't think he's
not at every single game for maybe the Jaguars. I bet you it is that he's at every Jaguars game. I don't think he's at every Fulham game.
No. Or I don't know, maybe I don't know, but
I know we find out like no, he is. Crossover. He's at everyone. So Dynamite was good. Yuta Wheeler, love that angle. You think they're gonna do that with Daniel Garcia as well? You think they're gonna pull him out of the Jericho Appreciation Society? Not soon.
Not soon, but maybe down the road for sure. Because I mean, this Jericho Appreciation Society's got like maybe 6 to 8 months of life.
I think they're really cool. I think it's hilarious, and I loved when Daniel Garcia took the mic and he goes, "What are you trying to say, bro? You're a sports entertainer? Well, I'm a sports entertainer too."
And I don't know if you watch any of Being the Elite. I do here and there, but
not anymore.
2.0 are hilarious on it.
Do they still like play games for championships?
Yeah.
What are they playing now?
The last one was Adam Cole playing blackjack against.
That's not a skill game, bro.
Well, they don't do skill games necessarily.
No, they did putt-putt.
They did. That was, but I mean, that was pretty awesome. That was the best one they did.
That was kind of a lucky one, though, because it was like putt-putt across concrete over like 30 yards.
But they didn't eat spicy something stuff, too. But 2.0 is pretty funny. So, especially the one guy that wears the Expos hat all the time. I don't know which one that is, but...
I don't know which one. Is he the square head or the needle dick or whatever?
The square head with the ponytail guy. That kind of talk.
Parker and something Lee or something.
Yeah, they're pretty entertaining. Jake Hager is there. As the muscle, which is fine.
Dude's from Montreal and he speaks like he's from New Jersey, but like I heard he was partly
not Jake
from
Hager.
New York. No. The Matt Parker is that?
Yeah.
He's like, hey, you want to taste of this? And I'm like, you're from.
Well, he sounds like he's doing a Pat Patterson impersonation or something, right?
He sounds like he's like a mobster from New York, bro.
He's very funny on Being the Elite.
He is very funny.
So seeing more of him with the mic that could work out well, and Daniel Garcia, I think it's good. I mean, Jericho is reinventing himself again.
I like it. It reminds me of Dragon Gate. Like, hey, the groups change. Like the stables change, people change, and there's a new group now.
But I'll be honest with you, if Jericho wants to do the heel thing right this time, he's got to get rid of the Judas song.
I know, I was thinking about that too. I was like, dude, you can't be using that one, but...
You can't have people singing along with it, man. You gotta think of something else.
Yeah, that'll make him hate him even more. He should get a really cheesy entrance music since he's a sports entertainer.
Judas is pretty cheesy.
I like that song more than most. But, so just to wrap things up here, man, we got Stardom this weekend. Kairi Sane coming back. Kairi. So I'll let you know how that goes, Justin.
I gotta find a way to see that.
Look, I'll tell you if it's good, okay? I'm gonna watch it. So we had...
I still haven't got into that like I've been meaning to, but man, I barely have time to watch what I do watch.
Justin's in his tired mode now. He's like,
you know what it is, though? It's like, can they get an app for the PS Network? Anybody?
No.
Other than, it's just the most convenient. I hate having to stretch and use my work computer.
Can you get YouTube TV on the PS Network?
YouTube? Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they don't care about PlayStation, dude. They just care about your web browser. You can't even get it to...
You can't even get the web browser on Sony to work with.
Oh, shit. Yeah, I know. It's like the most popular video game system, that and the Switch.
It's made by Sony. Which is a Japanese company, and you're not working with them? Do people not play video games in Japan anymore?
I know, whatever happened. Yeah.
But you know what? I think overall we talk about streaming isn't really big in Japan. They watch live television.
I think it's changing, though. Things will take time.
Yeah, because most people watch live TV on their phones in Japan.
Wow,
On
really?
the trains and stuff. Yeah, it's been like that for a while.
Well, there's a things are changing, dude. I mean, that's how it was here 20 years ago. So we'll see what happens. I'm sure Netflix gets good money from Japan. So, and I'm sure they have WWE Network there too, but they definitely need to up their compatibility with all sorts of platforms. They should have New Japan World on every gaming platform. But extra money, right? You got to put in testing, certification, all that stuff. Maybe they don't want that.
It can't be that much. I'm like, I watch.
Bro, they probably charge you to put it on the network. They probably charge you like thousands of dollars to put it on the PlayStation.
You ever watch Tubi?
No,
Pluto
I
TV?
kind of watch Pluto. Sometimes I watch TNA or like crime shit.
Tubi's a great one because they have a lot of British comedies that like aren't on Netflix anymore. That's what I use it
for.
for.
Is it streaming or is it like TV?
It's streaming and it's free.
But is it TV that you just tune into, or is you pick what you want to watch?
You pick what you want to watch.
Okay. I like Pluto because it feels like I'm young, like I'm like 15 and watching TV.
Yeah. But Tubi is like a free Netflix.
Okay.
It's free, and you're telling me
with
they
ads.
Yeah, there's ads, but I mean, so does Hulu, and so does like certain tiers of Hulu and whatever. But
I'm gonna torrent that shit first before I watch it on Tubi, though.
There's gotta be they can pay somebody some money just to cut and paste it on, and they're good to go.
And then they get a deal with Roku. It's like, what the fuck? Why?
All these...
It's so random.
The engines for all these streaming platforms, there's probably, it's like...
It's all Android, bro.
When you buy a flat screen television, right? These days, there's probably only 7 or 8 companies that make one.
Sony, Sharp, Samsung. And as long as you cover those 3 companies, Vizio, you're good. Just do 4 companies.
But like Vizio or whatever factory probably makes the Insignia ones you see at
Best Buy,
and Samsung probably makes some other brand. Like there's only a certain there's only a handful of companies that actually produce these things. Like Peacock is probably the same person that there's like these templates that you just can fill in.
And it's all Android anyways, bro. All those TVs run on Android. So you know what? First of all, we're going to need a sound effect for if we complain about COVID restrictions or streaming from Japan, but I agree with you. So, Stardom coming up soon. I will let you know how that goes, and I'll get you a way to watch that. And in 2 weeks, we have WrestleMania, which I'm not really freaking out about too much. I want to see Stone Cold, and I want to see Cody. And Brock Lesnar.
So indifferent. I mean, I want to see. I don't really. I mean, I'm not really. This is like this. I think I'm not alone either. I mean, not really that excited about WrestleMania. I'll definitely check it out, but I mean, I'm not looking forward to Ronda Rousey and Charlotte.
No, that sounds terrible. Bianca and
Ronda
Becky
Rousey
could be good.
Ronda Rousey does nothing for me.
Is Ricochet wrestling in WrestleMania?
He's the Intercontinental Champion, so I'd imagine he'd have to defend his title.
Yeah, but it'll be a 5-minute match,
Or it'll be a 36-man ladder match or something.
Yeah, for sure. So
it'll probably be good, though.
If he's in it,
Johnny Knoxville and Sami Zayn, it's like, what a waste of Sami Zayn.
It's like
talent.
I like both guys, but not in this type of situation.
I don't know. I think it's just a waste of a good professional wrestler like Sami Zayn.
It's using Sami Zayn for marketing and not really
Although
caring.
the phone call thing has been pretty funny if you've seen any of that on social media.
That was
but I think
funny.
Sami Zayn's talent should be used.
It should be him versus Ricochet, dude.
Yeah, or him versus Kevin Owens, or him and Kevin Owens forming this tag team, or it's just a waste. As much as I respect Johnny Knoxville and stuff, like,
no, but he's not a wrestler, dude. It's a. I respect Stephen Amell, but I wouldn't really want to see him on a WrestleMania, like fucking going against some of my favorite wrestlers.
Definitely not. And yes, and Brock and Roman will probably be great, maybe.
Yeah,
as long as they handle it right. But
I'm sure Seth will cash in.
Seth and Edge. Who has the would it cash in?
I'm just kidding. So yeah, right. We'll see.
That was a great moment.
That was a great moment, but year by year, WrestleManias kind of get worse and worse. So we'll see how this one goes. I don't even think you or I are gonna like sit there and watch the whole things, right? Like I'll probably check out maybe this. I don't know. Maybe I'll have it on in the background, right? That'd probably be the best way to do it.
It won't be something that, I'll watch it. I'll put it that way, but it's not something where like I'm gonna invite some friends over and have a WrestleMania party or anything like that.
No. Like even if I lived right next to you, we wouldn't. You know what I'm saying?
I probably wouldn't buy tickets to the show this year if I.
Yeah. Well, and it sucks because there's people like you and me that hopefully are going to be in that vicinity next year, and it's like just not that exciting,
I don't know why they have to do 2 nights. I guess they have to sell 100,000 seats somehow.
It's because Wrestle Kingdom. That's pretty much it, bro. Wrestle Kingdom they realized they could.
Do you think Vince McMahon knows that Wrestle Kingdom is even a thing, let alone it was 2 nights?
No, I don't think Vince McMahon does, but I think his underlings probably do, and they've probably recommended him like, hey, this Japanese show, huge numbers over 2 nights, and I think we could do 2 nights as well. Because that was the catalyst, man. And a lot of shows started doing 2 nights since then. They do Kobe World now, 2 nights. Like WrestleMania does 2 nights. I think Stardom's doing 2 nights, I think. So, yeah.
They were so done with this. They should have done, Roman or Brock win that first night to face each other the second night.
Dude, I don't even think Wrestle Kingdom should be 2 nights, brother. So
no, not anymore. I mean, they've kind of shoehorned the double. Well, the last one wasn't really a double gold challenge. It was just kind of a gauntlet.
Yeah, no, I get you. It was like unless it's on a Friday and Saturday, then maybe you can do it. But no, it's nonsense. But let's not end with too much positivity. Let's just say, hey,
negativity.
No, positivity. I don't like people being happy. Thank you guys for listening. We appreciate you so much. If you've made it this far. We're working at this podcast, guys. We don't talk about behind the scenes too much, but we super appreciate our listeners. And not to get emotional, but we've grown in listeners over. It's almost been a year now. Is that crazy or what? Probably in a few months. It's been a year.
Wow,
I know. It's nuts, huh?
Yeah.
We've already done 22, 23 episodes. So thank you guys for listening to us so much. We hope that we've helped you. We've hoped learn a little bit, and we always want you to come and talk to us and tell us what's up. If you have corrections, opinions, or anything like that, we would love to hear about that. So you agree, Justin?
Yeah, 100%, man. Love it.
Yeah. So this was Wrestling and Age. You guys have a good one, and we will see you guys later.